Alright, welcome to my non-biased perspective of the James Harden trade. Some Knicks fans hate the Nets. I don't hate the Nets whatsoever. I really don't. I never really got Knicks fans that hate the Nets. I get it, maybe because they're the New York team. Like, they were New Jersey originally. A lot of people hate New Jersey, and then they went over to New York, and they're a better team than us already, and they got Kevin Durant, Kyrie, our dream, and everything. But I don't have anything against Sean Marks. I don't have anything against their owner. I don't have anything against like Kevin Durant. He went to the Warriors, but he's still a fantastic basketball player. But I don't have anything against anyone in that organization. But I get it. We've been bad for a very long time. But we can't say we've had a rival or anything like that, especially because they're in New Jersey before. And the Knicks have been so bad for a long time. So we don't deserve to have a title of that's our rival. The Celtics, not a rival anymore. Certain teams are not rivals anymore because we're not good. If we're being real, hopefully we're good a few years down the road, for sure. But getting into the Brooklyn Nets trade, very interesting. James Harden, of course, heading to Brooklyn to pair up with Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant. And when it was first reported, I was like, okay, Kyrie Irving's gone. I guess they just gave up on his personality. He must be going crazy, saying the earth's flat once again, or whatever he's saying in Kyrie land. And I was like, okay, wow. That's crazy. They just like Kyrie's gone. I was thinking, I was like, wow, they only got Kevin Durant. Like, they just wanted Kevin Durant. They didn't want Kyrie with them. Like, they knew they're gonna pair up. So they're like, we have no choice, but we just wanted Kevin Durant out of this. That could still be like the thing how they just wanted Kevin Durant. They didn't want Kyrie with him. So a lot of people in free agency, they wanted KD, but they didn't want Kyrie because of the personality in the locker room and all that, so I understand that. But that may be the case, it may not be the case. Of course, they went on to trade for James Harden, giving up guys like Harris LeVert. Originally did go to the Rockets, then trade to the Pacers. They got rid of Jared Allen, a big-time contributing player, a big-time defensive anchor. But you're going to have to give up those big-time players of yours that contribute to your basketball team very nicely, especially a guy like Harris LeVert. I thought that was a huge loss, especially because like earlier in the season he had like a 40-something point game, and he's just a pure scorer of the basketball. I liked him at Michigan. Like again, like Jared Allen coming into his own, just molding into a very solid defensive anchor, and now they have like DeAndre Jordan that's going to have to play so many minutes, and their depth really went down. And you have to keep in mind, Spencer Dinwiddie, of course, he had that injury, so he's out the whole season. Prayers for Spencer Dinwiddie. I hope he has a good recovery. But you're going to have to give up draft capital. They gave up so much draft capital. I believe they don't have a first-round draft pick for the next like 6 or 7 years. And a lot of people are comparing this to the Celtics, like when they traded for Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, Jason Terry, when they had Darren Williams on that team. I don't think that's it at all. Like, you're having 3 guys that are in the prime of Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, and James Harden. I don't care. Kevin Durant's still in his prime. He still looks unbelievable. He's averaging freaking like 28 points per game back from that injury. Just the most effortless score of the basketball I've ever seen. Wow, those guys like Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, Jason Terry, like those types of players, they were washed. They were washed. They weren't in their prime anymore. But when I look at the full picture, Sean Marks did say that we're not going to give up a bunch of draft capital of our future and a bunch of pieces just to get like big time names, or just we don't want to like hurt our team that way. People could look at it as they're hurting their team, or people are going to be like, oh my gosh, we just got a top 3, top 5 player, one of the best scorers of all time on our team with Kyrie and Kevin Durant. You could say we have like debatably like 2 of the best scorers of all time. It's like some people can make that argument of Kevin Durant and James Harden. Like people could be very frustrated watching James Harden, but I think he's one of the most tricky and smart players. People could say he's boring to watch, but he's actually a very smart player if you like really appreciate the game. But I'm not going to say that. That sounds kind of rude. But some people either like James Harden or they just hate him. I'm kind of like in between on James Harden because he is frustrating, especially when he's playing my Knicks. But the big time thing that they sacrificed when they went on to trade for James Harden was the depth. Kubrick is also gone. Like I said, draft capital. Next like 6 or 7 years, they're not going to have a first round draft pick. Like, depth is definitely a big thing. We know James Harden plays a lot of minutes, or we don't know how the rotations are going to be in Brooklyn. With Steve Nash's philosophy, we're still a short amount of games into the season. But how will the chemistry be? Like, it's a 72-game season. It's shorter. So will they be able to gain chemistry right away? Or will they be able to gain enough chemistry in that amount of time in practices and all that? And I know people are going to be like, there's one ball. Those are 3 very ball-dominant basketball players. Kevin Durant, he could play off the ball. He could play in catch and shoot situations. James Harden can too, but he prefers to go off the dribble, really run out the shot clock. And like I said, I talked about this in another video when I was like, James Harden will be traded soon after the press conference and everything. And everyone was like, you're an idiot. Like, he was going to be traded like already. But that put the exclamation point on top after he said, like, I love Houston, I gave it all to this city and all that, but this situation's not going to be solved. After he said that, then it was just completely done. And I think the Nets kind of panicked to get James Harden because I think their mindset was like, we don't know if Kyrie's going to play. We don't know what's going on with his personality. Like, Sean Marks is saying that's not the reason, but of course you're not going to say that. But I think, honestly, they just wanted star power. They were like, we need star power to compete in this league. But the Celtics, the Lakers, they have Anthony Davis, they have LeBron James, but they also have depth. They also have other solid pieces on that basketball team. People make fun of Kuzma. He's a solid player. You have guys like Schroeder. You have guys like Montrezl Harrell. You have Marcus Gasol. You have like other solid players outside of your stars. And chemistry is also a huge thing. And will James Harden recognize when he's off in certain games, be like, okay, I have to give up the ball to Kevin Durant. He's more experienced in this situation, and he's better at hitting the shots in this situation, or Kyrie Irving. Or is James Harden going to be selfish and just run out the shot clock with his handle? Like, how will the offense be? And I'm not going to be one of those people saying that it's not going to work. Because no one could say that. No one could say it's not going to work. And people might be like, oh, I told you so. I knew it wasn't going to work. We won't know if it works or not until we actually see it with their own eyes, and it could potentially go down Saturday. James Harden, one of the best players in the league. Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant. But you're going to have a guy like DeAndre Jordan who's older, playing a lot of minutes. People are really going to be attacking that paint. That's probably going to be their main mindset. But yeah, a guy like Taurean Prince is also off this team. A lot of people are like, I don't care about Taurean Prince. But he's a solid piece off the bench. He can shoot the basketball. But we know James Harden, his liability of being a defensive player. When he shows effort, he's solid. But I was going to get back to my point. When I was talking about, I was also talking about how James Harden could go to Philly. That didn't go down. I remember I made that video like 40 minutes ago, before the trade happened. I deleted it because I was like, it wasn't relevant. But anyway, I was going to say Ben Simmons is this more efficient playmaker. Harden gets assists. But it seems like he doesn't get assists when it matters. It's like, I don't want to say he pads his stats because I don't know his mindset. But his eyes aren't always open. He's not always scanning the floor. But this team, I'm going to say this right now, this team needs to win a championship or they're screwed for the next 7 years. Yes, 7 years. Because when Kevin Durant's a free agent, if he leaves, Kyrie Irving, James Harden, they're screwed. They have no draft capital. They're screwed for the next 6 to 7 years. So they're going to have to win an NBA championship. Steve Nash is definitely going to have to be unbelievable. He's going to have to coach his ass off. I get it, you have these stars. But how will that team do when the bench plays? How will it contribute? Will guys like Lawan or Cabarrot step up? How will this team be as a whole? Some people could say the Nets made a big mistake. They traded some very solid, nice pieces. And I'm one of those believers that I don't think James Harden equals an NBA championship. And if James Harden's smart, he'll realize I need to take a step back. He's going to have to go the approach like a Chris Bosh did. Chris Bosh, number one option. Yes, you can say they're different positions, but he's going to have to mature himself. He's definitely going to have to recognize certain things, and he's like, I'm going to have to play different in this type of situation. Chris Bosh, number one option, beast on the Raptors, went to Miami with Dwayne Wade, LeBron James. He took a step back and played this very solid role, which helped them win a championship. He knew he was going to have to take a step back. Is James Harden going to do that? Is he going to do that? We know Kevin Durant's not. And I don't think Kevin Durant is, he's not ball dominant. You could say he's ball dominant. He's going to have his moments, but he makes the right play. Is James Harden going to recognize when to make the right play? Is he going to recognize, when I have to kick it out? Because I've seen certain situations when I watch Kevin Durant play, you can say he's ball dominant, but he's not at the same time because he takes over when he has to. He moves the ball when he has to when you watch Kevin Durant play. And I'm not going to say James Harden's a playoff choker. There's some experience of him missing some big-time shots, blowing some serious leads, against, the Golden State Warriors. You could say Harden's a playoff choker if you really want to. I'm not going to go that far, he's this crucial playoff choker. But he's going to have to realize to take a step back. especially when there's not as much depth on this team. They lost depth, a bunch of draft capital. They're a win now mode team. Got rid of like solid pieces and a big time defensive anchor of Jared Allen. Not gonna say this reminds me of the Knicks traded for Carmelo Anthony because the Knicks never had a Kevin Durant. As all respect to Amari Stoudemire, all respect to Carmelo Anthony, Kevin Durant, Carmelo never the like same level. They weren't. You could even make the debate James Harden better than Carmelo in his prime if you really wanted to. Kyrie, I don't know about that. I thought like Carmelo was better in his prime than Kyrie Irving. Um, you could say scoring the basketball wise or just overall. But Sean Marks promised culture that he wouldn't make like any big time moves of like ruining the future to go out there and get a big time guy. He wouldn't do what a guy like Billy King did trading for Paul Pierce. But I think this is a different type of situation. But none of us could say this isn't going to work because we'll only know if this works or not like when we actually see it with our own eyes. But did the Nets make a big mistake trading for James Harden? Some people like Harden's style of play. I'm personally not a fan. I know some Nets fans might be pissed because they're like, oh great, we're not going to see Kevin Durant like hit big shots. We're going to see James Harden just trying to draw a foul every single time. And the game's a lot different in the playoffs. We've seen James Harden not get the same calls in the playoffs. They up the level of physicality. Like you need more physicality to draw those fouls. It's less ticky-tacky. And just like it all comes down to him taking a step back, maturing his game. But will he do that? Will he get back into shape? I really don't like how he handled the Houston situation. He had no class. But let me know down below your thoughts and analysis. How do you think the Nets are going to do with this new era? Steve Nash, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and James Harden. It's going to be very interesting. It just is. Some people say Houston robbed the Nets. If they don't win a championship, you could say Houston won this trade with the draft capital they got back. And they're just like kind of a rebuilding basketball team now. They're probably going to try to get that John Wall contract off the books, but just I appreciate you guys watching. I think this is either going to go really good. Actually, I'm not going to say it's going to go really good or really bad. Like, this team has an opportunity to go to the finals, but it all comes down to like making sure that these players self-check themselves and be like, okay, I got to be smart. I got to be smart in this situation. I got to take a step back. And we'll see how Harden is. We'll see if he changes. We'll see if they mesh together. Will they build chemistry in time in a shorter type of season? And it's going to be hard for Steve Nash, like having those types of personalities, first-year head coach. I think people really overlook that. But as always, guys, have a humble, dare night. Peace out, y'all.